Okay, so let's get ready for our Sunday football snack. This week, we're going to do a buffalo chicken dip. So I have some chicken tenderloins here. It's going to be way easier to break down than a chicken breast. I have a couple of various cheeses. You can use the cheeses that you like. I also like to usually do some pepper jack to spice it up a little bit more. I have some Sweet Baby Ray's here. This is buffalo wing sauce, but it's going to be acting as our hot sauce this week, and some cream cheese, some blue cheese, and I have some crushed red peppers, garlic powder, black pepper, thyme, and I also have some Himalayan pink salt so we can salt our water. The first thing we want to do is give our chicken a bath. So I have poured some cold water and some. So now I'm going to let these sit in here for a little bit, and then we'll continue to wash them off. You want to use cold water and not hot water. Hot water or even warm water will start the cooking process, and you don't want it to start to pre-cook prior to you putting it in your water. So you want to ensure that you use cold water, some lemon juice. You also could use apple cider vinegar, which is something else I typically would use as well. But today, just a lemon juice to clean it off. And you'll see how it starts to separate and some of the impurities are floating to the top. So while we're prepping our chicken, we also want to make sure that we preheat our oven to 375 degrees. We're going to bake this off in the oven to bring it all together. And then we're also going to get our pot of water prepared in order to boil our chicken. So we have our seasonings here. We're going to add the seasonings in and create a good stock for the chicken to go into to then introduce that flavor and prepare it for shredding a little bit later. While we do have garlic powder, I'm also going to add some fresh minced garlic in here. So I'm going to do about a tablespoon. This is going to give it a lot of great flavor in here as well. And it's going to give it a stronger taste than it would with our garlic powder. So I'm also going to salt the water. So you're going to add in your salt. I've thrown in the red pepper flakes. And you're gonna eyeball this. I know people always ask, how much. It depends on how, much seasoning you prefer. Usually you'll know you want the water to be well seasoned because you're not really going to season the chicken directly. So this is going to be the primary seasonings for the chicken. It'll still get flavor from the buffalo sauce and the cheeses and the blue cheese as well. So that is going to also give it a kick of flavor, but you want to ensure that your stock water that you're creating is going to be flavorful so that it can penetrate the chicken. Okay, so we're back to our chicken. It's been soaking for about 10 minutes in the cold water with the lemon juice. You can see the residue is starting to float to the top. So we're now going to drain that off. And you can even see how the chicken has started to break down, and this is from the lemon juice, which is why we didn't want to put in the warm water with it. Because these are chicken tenderloins and not full chicken breast, the fat density is a little bit lower, so that allows it to break down easier than it would if it was a larger cut of chicken. Okay, so we have our chicken all cleaned. I'm pulling it out now, and I'm going to go through each piece and just cut off some of this excess fat. We're going to leave these whole so they can actually cook down, and I'm going to shred them later. You also want to take out any excess pieces of joint and things like this so that it's all clear when you're ready to break it down and make your process a little bit easier later. Okay, so now it's time for us to add our chicken to our water. I've broken it down, it's all cleaned, and now we're going to add it in. Now you want to be careful with this. The water can splash back, so you want to put it down pretty low and drop it lightly. You don't want to splash it because it is boiling water and it will splash back on you. You can also use tongs if you prefer, whatever you feel more comfortable with. I'm a little familiar with this, so I don't mind just taking it and dropping it in. Okay, so I've pushed the chicken oil down so that it is completely submerged in the water, and as you see, it's already turning white. You can see how it's starting to still try to float to the top, some of the smaller pieces. This is not going to take long at all. Set your timer for about 15 minutes and we should be good to go. When working with raw meat, I do like to take a capful of bleach and dump it into the water so that can help sanitize it and do a deep clean. I did put the stopper in the sink, and I'm letting the sink fill up with some hot water. Put that Kappa's bleach as well as some Dawn dish soap in there. This is going to act twofold. It's going to help us clean the sink from the chicken residue, and it's also going to allow us to wash the few dishes that had the chicken on it. I'm really big about cross-contamination, so we want to be safe while we cook and prepare. Be sure that you put your knife over to the side. Do not leave it in the sudsy water. We don't want any accidents. So it's been 15 minutes. I've turned off the heat, and you can see all of our tenders floating around in the stock, and you can tell that they're done. Usually you can see how they're already starting to shred on their own. You also can do kind of a fork test, and you see how that broke off so easily, and it's cooked all the way through. So we're going to drain off the juice and take out the tenders. So since we've made our own stock and we really want to actually save these juices, I'm going to strain it this way, where I strain it from the top and pour the juices into the bowl below. That way we can save this. You can utilize this and make it the base for some soups or some other recipes. So I would definitely say to put it in a jar and save it. And we're actually going to use some of these juices in our recipe to reconstitute the chicken to make sure that it doesn't get dried out. As you can see, also by draining it from the top and draining the excess juices into a bowl, it allowed us to keep a lot of the flavors. You can see the minced garlic is still there, the red pepper, so this is still allowing us to retain the flavor into the chicken profile as well. Now we're going to actually refrigerate this for about 10 to 15 minutes to cool it down some, so we can use our hands to break this down and start to assemble our buffalo chicken dip. So I've moved the chicken into the strainer. The excess juices have been strained off. This way it is going to allow it to cool much quicker than it would in a pot. Of course, you never want to put a hot pot into a refrigerator because it will bring down the entire temperature of the refrigerator, and it can mess with the other food items you have in there. Okay, so now we have all of our chicken broken up and shred it in the bowl. So I made a good amount, and it doesn't have to be totally fine, because as we continue to mix in our ingredients, we're going to break this down even more. So this is good for it to be of the shredded consistency. Okay, now let's add in our buffalo sauce, and you can use any type of sauce that you prefer, regular hot sauce, Texas Pete, whatever you have. This is just a thicker consistency. It's going to pour out a lot easier, so I prefer this, but I'll use whatever I have. As far as hot sauce, depends on what flavoring you want and how spicy you want it to be. So you're going to start incorporating it in. Again, it's really going to depend upon how much chicken you have. This is a 16-ounce bottle, so I assume I'm going to use probably close to half. As you can see, it's getting down to that halfway mark, so I'm going to start to mix it. And again, you can do this with a fork. I prefer my hands just to get everything mixed in well. And you can see it's like a good coloring, so it's really getting saturated in our chicken, just what we want to see. This is also going to be fine too, because some of the moisture is going to be taken up too, because we're going to add in our cream cheese next. Okay, so this is pretty well mixed. Okay, you see how it's already lightening, so it just has some color to it, but definitely coated. I'm gonna make sure all of it has some of the seasoning and some of the sauce in it. Now we're gonna take our cream cheese. So this is a full pack of cream cheese that we're going to use in this. I did leave this out, so as you can see, it's gonna break apart pretty easily. I like for it to soften to make this process easier, so I'm just breaking it into some clumps, and then we're going to fully incorporate it in. Again, you can choose to use a fork. I'm going to utilize my hands for easy mixing in this process as well. I'll take a couple clumps, and after we add this in. We're gonna add a little bit more of the buffalo sauce in to ensure we have enough flavor all throughout. So now we have all of our cream cheese in. And you can use whatever you prefer. You know, if you prefer like a low fat cream cheese, that's also fine. If you want to use less, that's also fine. Whatever your preference is. So we're just going to incorporate it as much as we can. Okay, so now I've removed my gloves and now we're going to start building our chicken dip. So I am using a loaf pan. You can use any size pan you want. I usually would use also a half baking pan. This time I'm going to do it in a loaf pan because I'm not making a huge portion. It's going to be more deep than wide, so it's going to have a certain level of thickness to it based on this pan, and it is going to be a smaller portion, so I'm going to build it out in this pan. So first what we're going to do, we're going to add a little bit more of the buffalo sauce. Again, add as much or as little as you want. It's really based on your flavor preferences, but I'm going to add a little bit more. As you can see, you can still see some of that cream cheese in there. So I'm adding this in to ensure we get a little bit more flavor in before we start building it out. So we're going to do this in layers, just like you would do with a lasagna or any other type of layered dip. We're going to build it out in layers. So I think that's pretty good. Okay. All right, so first you want to put down your chicken dip. I'm going to take a nice heap there, and you are going to build it out in the bottom of your pan. I usually like to put it in and start to smooth it out. Make sure that it is pretty level so it can cook evenly. So I am building it out this way and patting it down as I go, and I'm going to smooth it down. Okay, so we have our first layer down. I'm gonna start with the gourmet blend. This has Wisconsin, New York, and Vermont sharp cheeses in it. I've washed my hands, so don't get on me about digging in this bag. So I've washed my hands, so I'm gonna put a layer of this cheese on, and you want to cover it like that. Again, sometimes I mix the cheeses in and then build it out and then do a layer. Whatever you feel is going to work best for you. This time I'm going to do it as individual layers. So now we'll do another layer of the chicken. And you can eat this with several different things. Usually I do tortilla chips, and you can do it with crackers, you can do it with pita bread, whatever you prefer. You can do it with a smorgasbord. You can do a little bit of everything, especially if you're entertaining guests. You also could do it with even vegetables, right? If you want to make it a little healthier, you can also serve it with like celery or cucumbers, carrots, all of the things. Do another layer of cheese. I'm going to save the blue cheese crumbles into the top. You can choose to incorporate it throughout, but I like for it to be on the top layer. This layer, as you see, I'm doing a little bit lighter layer of cheese. It's not going to be as heavy as the bottom. And then this will be our last layer of chicken. This is always like a fan favorite. It's good for game nights, holiday parties, any event. So if you want something that's like quick and easy to make, this is your dish. It looks good. And now I'm actually going to finish it with the creamy melt. So this is a triple cheddar, shredded Vermont white cheese, sharp cheddar, and mild cheddar. This is the creamy melt. I usually like to also do this for things like macaroni and cheese. It just gives it a silky finish to it. It also has a touch of cream cheese, so it's gonna give us some extra creaminess as we have throughout, but this is why I like to just use it on the top versus all throughout, since we already have our cream cheese mixture in there. Again, I'm not going to pack the top super heavy with the cheese. We just want to have some across the top, and then we'll have our blue cheese crumbles, and you can again use as much or as little as you like. I love blue cheese, so I'm going to spread it around, and then I'm actually going to pat it down some so it gets a little bit more incorporated into the cheese. So this will be great. I usually bake this for about 20 to 25 minutes. You can do it first covered and then uncovered to have it brown up is usually how I like to do it. That helps all the cheeses melt down and cook through. So this is our finished dish. It is looking good so far, so we're gonna pop this in the oven now. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for, our buffalo chicken dip is ready, hot out the oven. I ended up putting it on for an additional 10 minutes just to give it a little bit of this browner coloring. It was still a little light, so use it to your discretion and figure out what's going to be the appropriate time and temperature for your particular oven. Also, it's going to depend on the baking pan size, etc. So because this is a deeper dish, you know, it did take a little bit longer to bake all the way through, and took the aluminum foil off, and now we have a golden brown. So you can pair this with several things. Tortilla chips, of course, is like a fan fave. You can also do some crackers. You can even do like toast points, do a baguette, slice up some bread and eat it with that. If you want to do a healthy option, baby carrots, again, celery or cucumbers. I like it with the tortilla chips. It just all depends. So we're going to dig in and we'll pull some of it out so you can see what it looks like. So yeah, it is steamy and hot. So this is what the final product looks like, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Put in the comment below if you would change anything, if you would add anything in, if you've done a recipe similar to this. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you give it a try. Let me know how you like it. Thanks for tuning in and be blessed, guys.